Welcome back to my channel for another night of Spooktober. Tonight is night number 3, and I'm just going to say I'm sorry if my ring light in my glasses is distracting, but I just can't wear my contacts anymore today. So, night number 3, I originally had a completely different video planned for tonight, but I decided that last time's video wasn't very spooky, so it was time to bring in some spooky. I'm gonna move you just a little. Okay, so we are going to read some Reddit scary stories tonight. I am going to do my best to make this video super long. I have a bunch of them saved, and I am just going to get right to it. I'm not super happy with how this lighting is looking, though. Let's pick a color here. Pick a color. There we go. Oh no, you can't see the candles. See, I am a mess, y'all. But wait. There we go. Anyway, I love this light, by the way. It's one of the best things I ever bought for my channel, I think. Okay. Reddit. Spooky stories. Lego. So, the first one I have marked, I was kind of disappointed because the author deleted their name, and I really like to give credit where credit is due. So, this is called The Red Minivan That Haunted Us for Half a Year in 2006. I've shared a few stories on here before, but this is the one that bothers me the most. It happened years ago when I was about 13 or 14. When I was a young teenager back in the fall of 2006, me, my family, and my neighbors started having these bizarre encounters with an old man in a dark red minivan. Back then, I used to live on a hill above a non-operational fishing village. It was about a 40-minute drive outside of the city along a highway. The highway to the village was a dead end, and there was nothing down that way except housing. There weren't even motels or stores of any kind. Most of the houses were homes of elderly people, while the others were abandoned fishing stages that overlooked the water. It was very strange to see anyone that we didn't recognize in the area, especially from September through May. We would get the odd tourist during the summer months, but never from fall to spring. When I was in middle school, every day after I got home off the bus, I would walk up to the mailbox. It was about a good 15-minute hike along this highway. The mailbox was up the road towards the city. Past my house, there was only about 8 other houses, all on the same side of the road as mine. After these houses, it was just thick trees and swampy marshes. I used to like to call the area Silentville instead of Silent Hill. We were right on the very edge of the East Coast, right by the ocean. It was a fog bank all year round. It was rare that we would get a sunny day, and even when it was sunny in the city, it was still foggy down here. Sometimes the fog was so thick you could barely see a few feet ahead of you. Anyway, one afternoon after school, I was on my usual trek back home after checking the mail, and I heard the rattling of a vehicle in the distance. I always walked facing traffic since my mother would have a fit if I didn't. Safety rules and all. It was crawling towards me, its headlights clearing the fog. It was probably going about 5 miles per hour, which is odd considering the speed limit is 70. The minivan came to a halt about 10 feet ahead of me. It just stopped right there in the middle of the highway. I continued walking towards it. I figured it was just somebody looking for directions. As I neared the window of the car, I could see an old man sitting in the driver's seat. He was fairly small, with light gray patches of hair on his head. His eyes were very watery and of a dull blue color. "Hello, young lady," he said, with a very soft voice. "Hi," I responded. He started to make small chat with me, and I really don't remember what, but it was sort of just casual talking. I had noticed he had a small, fluffy white dog on his passenger seat. And the thing that really struck me as odd about this dog was its body language. You see, the old man would move his hand a lot while speaking, and every time he would quickly move, his dog would sort of scrunch further back in his seat. It seemed a bit afraid of him. But the odd thing was, or another odd thing was, if I could learn to read, he always kept his other hand between the two seats, and I could sort of make out what seemed to be something of a metallic material under his hand. After chatting with me for a bit, he slowly turned his head away, and then continued up the road towards the city. I shrugged it off, figuring he was just a relative of someone down in the village, and I continued home. About a week went by without seeing him, and by then he was just a memory. I was on my way up to the mailbox when I heard the familiar sound of rattling coming down the road towards me. Him again, I thought. I was a little weirded out by him, so I jumped down into the ditch and hid in the brush. I watched as he sluggishly drove by. The entire time he's looking around, observing, sort of like a hunter looking for his prey. After he was long out of sight, and I couldn't hear his vehicle anymore, I jumped up from the ditch and hurried my way up to the mailbox. The last 6-minute stretch of road had no housing, so it was pretty isolated. After snatching up the mail, I started hurrying back, and that is when I ran into him again, in the worst place possible, the long stretch of road with no houses. This time, he was coming up the road quite fast, and I didn't have time to hide. He pulled up next to me and said, "Hello, dearie, were you down in the ditch earlier?" Oh crap, I thought he'd seen me. "Oh, I thought I'd seen a cat down there," I said. "You like cute animals, dearie? You get in the back seat and play with my puppy. She loves kids," he said, smiling. No thanks," I said as I started to walk away. He reached out my window and grabbed onto my arm and said, "Please, dearie, I insist. I can drive you home. You live at da-da-da-da-da." He rattled off my address, right? I stood there, dumbfounded. How did he know which house I lived in? I shook him off and started to run, and he started backing up his car after me. I bolted down the road and didn't look back. At the time, my aunt lived a few houses up the road, and so I ran into her driveway and started frantically banging on her door. She came to the door and let me in, where I called my mother and asked her to come pick me up. When I got home, I told her everything, and she was really upset, and she called the police. They basically told us they couldn't do anything, especially since we didn't have a license plate number. But after that, I wasn't allowed to go on walks anymore. But he continued to show up, usually twice a week. Right after my school bus dropped me off, he would come driving slowly down the road. One day, my neighbor asked him what he was doing, and he responded, "Oh, I'm just a lonely gentleman. I saw a woman one day down the road working on her garden, and and she just captured my heart. My neighbor told him she was married, and he just laughed and said something along the lines of, "If you want to love work, you have to work for it," and drove off. My neighbor got his license plate and called the police. About 40 minutes later, the police came, but he was long gone by then. Our neighbor waved the police over and talked to them, and they told him that the car had been reported stolen a few months back. Sometime during November, my parents were out in the evening doing yard work, and he stopped in front of our yard and asked my parents where I was. He said that he missed our time together and felt neglected. My parents got really upset and chased him away. A couple of days later, I was up late at night playing, I'm assuming it's a football game, FFXI, on the Xbox 360 in the den. The den was on the bottom floor, and I used to keep all of the blinds open with the lights off in the room. I liked looking at the night sky. Oh, I see where this is going. People could probably see me through the window since it was facing the street. So there I was, illuminated by the TV, all cuddled up in my big armchair, having a late night game session. It was probably around 2 a.m. and I see the familiar red minivan slowly coming down the road. I froze. It parked a few feet up the road from my property, in between our house and the house next door. There was a small driveway that led to nowhere between our land. He stopped his car, turned it off, and got out. I watched in horror as he walked closer to our home. I was terrified, and I pushed myself as far back into the chair as I could, hoping he wouldn't see me. I felt like screaming, but my parents were upstairs and both were sound sleepers. He paced back and forth in front of our house, sort of staring. He was looking into the den, and this is where it gets extremely strange. He just stops in place, and he lays down on the side of the road in front of our house. He lay there for a good hour, and I was frozen with fear the entire time. After about an hour, he got up, strolled back to his car, and left. I ran upstairs crying and told my parents. They called the police again, but he was gone by the time they showed up. We were all frustrated. The police, despite having the license plate, couldn't do anything, and this guy was coming around, harassing and terrifying us and our neighbors. This went on until about March. A good month passed without seeing him, and that is when we got the news. Our neighbor, who was good friends with someone that lived down a dead-end road a bit further up, had been on a walk to his friend's house. He spotted the red minivan in a driveway of a house that had just been put up for sale. The people had already moved out. He got filled with anger upon seeing it, and he ran over. When he got closer to the van, he noticed blood on the passenger's side window. He went to the closest house and used their phone to call 911. He went back over to the car to check it out. He was pretty ballsy. He was sort of the neighborhood protector. The car doors were unlocked, and he looked in the window to see the small dog's body, a wallet which had an ID in it, and a bloody wrench wedged between two of the seats. He left and waited for the police to arrive. Our neighbor stayed in contact with the police. Apparently, the guy had left in a hurry, leaving his ID behind. It turns out he had just been released from prison not long ago for offenses toward minors. We didn't get any details, though. I felt so horrible for the dog, and I really hope he never got his hands on another animal again. I sometimes worry that he went on to harass other people the same way he harassed us. Ooh. Ah. The next one is written by a person called Schmidtface. My stepmom and her best friend's story, the author writes, I have my own, but I'm hesitant to drag some of them up, so I'm hoping telling someone else's story will open me up to it a little more. My stepmom didn't like us much, but she told my sister, who was 3 years older than me, and I, this experience growing up to scare us out of being stupid. It was my family's stranger danger story. My stepmom, we're gonna call her Macy, grew up as kind of a privileged teen in the 70s, and her mom had moved their family over here to the States from England when she was about 9. She went to a pretty nice high school in a really nice town, and there she made friends with a girl, we'll call her Lily, who didn't exactly run with Macy's type of crowd, you know, popular, stereotypical, the author writes. They really hit it off, and Lily would take Macy out to do her type of stuff. Fishing, hiking, sailing. There's even a hilarious set of pictures of them camping. My stepmom has raccoon eyes and looks as though she hates everything. Anyway, because of Lily's influence, the two of them would do stuff like that a pretty good amount. One Saturday, they decided to go hike in some hills about an hour away. Macy put on what I'm sure were her extremely expensive hiking boots, and the two of them drove off to the hiking trails. Lily parked in this big clearing with makeshift parking spots, you know, like a piece of wood marking the head of a space. But there were no other cars there, and this is only important in hindsight. They started to hike up the hill off the path because Lily fancied herself as something of a bee. A bad bee. I'm not gonna say it. The hike was nothing extraordinary. If you ask my stepmom, she would just lament for 15 minutes on how sticky and buggy it was. Anyway, they reached the top of the hill, and my stepmom was done. The polished, pampered side of her was coming out, and she groaned until Lily begrudgingly said, okay, they could rest, and then they would walk back down again, slower this time. They had been heading down the hill for maybe 10 minutes when Macy started complaining again. Lily conceded to walking down the side of the road instead of the rough hiking trail. So there they are, probably looking like a couple of tools, geared up for hiking and walking down a crappy road. And after not even 5 minutes, a truck pulls up next to them. It was red and rusty and just generally looked like a clunker. The guy driving rolled down the window, and the girls looked in through the passenger side. He had a big beard, a baseball cap pulled down, and long brown hair. He greeted them and even smiled through his beard and asked if they needed a ride. Macy described him as charming, maybe even a little cute. Lily still says the moment he greeted them, her hackles went up. Despite her better judgment, my stepmom convinced her to get in the truck. It must be only a 10-minute ride to the car, tops. The two girls opened up the passenger door to this rusty old truck, and the guy directed them behind the seat to get in the back. Why would you do this? They settled in, and the truck started rumbling forward. Lily always says that was the point where it hit her. What a mistake they had just made. The backseat was clean enough, but there was rope on the floor behind the driver's seat, and 4 boxes of saran wrap half hanging out from under the passenger's seat. It just seemed creepy and weird, I agree. But Lily didn't want to freak my stepmom out, so she just kept her mouth shut. After 10 minutes, the woods didn't look any clearer, and they hadn't seen another car the whole time. Lily asked how long he thought it would be. He said he was taking a different route down the hill and had to stop to get something first. That was it. These girls were 16 and 17, and Lily was definitely on red alert now. The guy turned off the truck and slipped out of it, saying, "I'll be right back. Don't get out." And he disappeared into the house. Lily tried to talk to my stepmom about how she was getting incredibly uncomfortable, but Maisie mostly just dismissed her friend. Lily started begging, increasingly getting more freaked out, and finally put her foot down and demanded Maisie exit the truck with her. They get out and they walk around the front of the vehicle. The house is about 50 yards in front of them. Why this guy would have left 2 young girls in the truck alone while going to the house is beyond me, and they wandered around looking at it hesitantly. If this guy was really decent and trying to give them a ride, it would be super rude to just run off, right? My stepmom had this strict upbringing when it came to manners and a public persona, and she saw it as an issue of this nature, so she actually started to head back to the truck, opening the front door to climb in behind the driver's seat. Lily was so mad and followed her to yell at her some more. On the driver's side floor, half hidden under the seat, there was a big hatchet. It had dried red-brown stains covering the blade, and it stuck to the floor under it. Lily understandably lost it, and seeing it, my stepmom started getting hysterical. They decided that leaving was by far their best option at this point, and they just booked it off the side of the property into the trees. They bumbled around in the trees for a while until Lily was fairly convinced they were on their way back down the hill. My stepmom cried the whole way down. Lily felt bad about it, was also completely freaked out that doesn't make any sense, but was also completely freaked out that he would hear it. That it says heart it, and kept trying to calm her down. When they finally got back down to the bottom and saw the old wooden fence that surrounded the original parking area, but as they got closer they saw it. The truck. It was parked on the other side of the gravelly makeshift lot, just sitting there, facing the other way innocently. They couldn't see if anyone was in it, and of course Maisie wanted to run for the car, but Lily was super hesitant. She managed to calm my stepmom down, saying she wanted to wait before running out into the open to see what was out there. Now remember, it's the 70s. They do not have cell phones. There were no ranger stations or anyone around. The parking lot was big and empty and open. Who knows what would have happened if they decided to just stroll across it. Sorry if you just heard Lucy. Thankfully, Lily convinced my stepmom to chill, and the 2 of them hunkered down against a big tree, hidden by bushes and other trees, and waited it out for what seemed like a couple of hours when darkness began to fall. All of the animals started coming out and making noises, and my stepmom predictably started getting antsy and bothering Lily, who was tired and moments away from giving in. She was just planning their dash to the car when they heard a clunk. Across the twilight-lit lot, they watched as one of the back doors of their car swung open, and the bearded guy slid his way out of their back seat. He got out, shut the door, looked around at the surrounding woods for several minutes, and then walked back to his truck. The truck lumbered past their car and out of sight. Several minutes after watching him drive away, they sprinted to their car as fast as they could, jumped in, and peeled out before they had even shut the doors. If this guy is still alive, he's really old. But still, let's not meet. There's a little edit at the bottom and it says, "Hey, thank you guys so much for enjoying my recounting. It really makes my day to know that this made life a little more interesting for some of you." Lily Vance, she grew up to be an awesome adult too. She does stuff like hike mountains and stuff, but with her dogs now. Also, my ex-stepmom, grew a brain at some point in her life and isn't as derpy or terrible as she was. Thanks thanks to her, I always check my backseat before getting into my car. That was so creepy. I am always scared someone will be in my backseat, and I cannot get Sean to lock the doors, like, to the house. I always tell him, I'm like, dude, Richard Ramirez said that he only attacked people that left their doors open because he saw it as an invitation. Lock the friggin' doors. But he never does. So, yeah. Okay. I have a couple more for you guys. These ones are a little shorter. I wanted to start off with the longer ones. So the first one is titled Little Hands, and it is written by Reddit user Patented Space Hook. I get the feeling it's about kids, and that creeps me out. I've never lived in a haunted house, but my mother did as a teen. Other houses on our street had strange things going on, too. A few homes away from her lived a family. One night, the daughter went to bed with a bad headache, and the next day, she was dead. She had passed away from an aneurysm. After her funeral, the family went away to get their minds off the tragedy, and their father asked my uncle, my mom's brother, to check on their pets. My mom and dad, who were just dating at the time, went with him. My mother had heard that there was a grand piano, and she wanted to play it. My dad was studying to be a veterinarian. After entering the house, my uncle and my father headed to the basement to check on the animals. My mom went to the piano on the ground floor. She was playing it when she felt something brush against her ankles. She thought a cat must have left the basement and walked past her, so she kept playing, and then she felt it again. She looked under the piano and saw nothing. When she started again, she felt hands clasp her legs tightly. She dashed to the basement door and called my uncle and father and waited for them. When they got back outside, my uncle could tell that my mom was rattled and asked what was wrong. She told him what had happened, and he turned white as a sheet. He told her the daughter who had died used to play a game with her father. When he played the piano, she would crawl underneath, grab his ankles, and push his feet up and down on the pedals. The next one is titled The Phantom Patient, and this is by Reddit user Zerbo. The ambulance company I used to work for had a haunted ambulance. A lot of EMTs had stories about it, but I never put much stock into paranormal stuff. That is, until I had my own experience with Rig 12. My partner and I were working in a rural community. It was about 3 a.m., pitch dark and completely quiet. We were both kind of dozing, and I was in the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat. I woke up to a muffled voice. I thought it was my partner talking. I told her I was trying to sleep and close my eyes. And then I distinctly heard a male voice say, "Oh my God, am I dying?" Followed by a few seconds of heavy breathing. My partner and I sat up straight and looked back into the patient compartment, where it sounded as though the voice had come from. Things were quiet for a couple of seconds, and then we heard the click of the oxygen bottle regulator and a hiss as though it was leaking. I turned on the lights and we jumped out of the rig. I thought maybe a transient might have climbed in while we were asleep. So we opened the rear doors. No one was there. I checked the oxygen bottles. Neither was open. Needless to say, we didn't sleep much after that. I'm gonna hold for the train. Maybe. Every time I do, then it stops using its little horn. And as soon as I start reading again, it'll start again. Okay, I'm just gonna go for it. Sorry. The next one is titled The Impish Ghost, and it is by user Abby's Alibi. My neighbor Dane and I had a playful poltergeist for laundry detergent in the bathtub. Diane once called to ask if Billy had been around because she couldn't find a gallon of milk. We finally found it outside on our back steps. And sugar. The dang sugar. Every morning my sugar bowl was empty. When I'd had enough, I would point to Diane's house and yell, "Go see Diane." Within 5 minutes, I'd get a call from her. "Thanks a lot," she'd say. He'd gone and pulled shenanigans at her place. This occurred for the entire 2 years that we lived there. No one believed us, not even our husbands. My mother thought someone was stealing from us when we were sleeping or out of the house. My sister Dexter was half drowned in the toilet. I took him out, washed him, and dried him, and I was just so confused. At 8 a.m., I called the landlord and I gave her a watered down version of the night. And let me tell you what, if my landlord said this to me, landlord said, "Oh wow, you heard the whispering too? No, I'm out. Whatever lease we got is over. Bye-bye." The writer continues, "I stayed at that apartment another 18 months. No. I heard the whispering on a few occasions, and twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. I live elsewhere now, and the landlord recently called. She said that the new tenants had begged to speak with me about some of the stuff that's been going on there. Forget it, it's their problem now. Why would they want to speak to her instead of the landlord? No, no, no." The next one is called The Boy with No Eyes, and it is written by Reddit user Commendo4. One night when I was 10, I was woken up by my bedroom door opening, followed by someone sitting on my bed. I felt my leg grazed and the bed sink under a person's weight. It's just Mom, I thought, and I opened my eyes. It was not my mom. I found this eyeless boy. He had black, empty sockets, about my age, sitting at the foot of my bed. He extended his hand, and in it was a little box. I was startled, but I reached out, and he pulled back. I reached again, and I said, "Give it." And then I blinked, and when I reopened my eyes, he was gone, but I could still see the imprint where he'd sat on my bed. Nope. Fast forward 5 years, my girlfriend came over to do homework. After she finished, she took a nap while she waited for her parents. When she arrived, I tried waking her up. She opened her eyes suddenly and looked up at the corner where the wall met the ceiling. She pointed there and went back to sleep. I shook her again, and she came to full consciousness, and I explained what she's done. She looked haunted and said, "Up on the wall, I saw a little boy with no eyes. He was up there in a Spider-Man pose, staring at me." I freaked out and told her my story about the same kid. Fast forward another 5 years. I have the same girlfriend, and we have a 2-year-old. We were living in my parents' house in my old room, and my daughter started waking up at the same time every night, and she would talk. After a while, I noticed she had almost the same conversation every night. I playfully asked her once whom she was talking to, and she said, "It's a little boy. He's nice, he's lost, and he's looking for his mommy." My daughter's nightly conversations continued until we got our own place later on that year. Okay, let's see where we're at here. I have some left, but okay. The next one, I'm gonna read this one and finish this video up. It is called The Red Lady of Huntington with a D, College. And there's no author's name, so sorry. Here's a story that dates back to 1910, but almost any student at Huntington College in Montgomery, Alabama should recognize it. Tell me if you do. That's because the events that led up to it are said to have actually happened. As the story goes, in 1910, a young woman who was new to the school was known for her love of the color red. Sadly, she was also known for being strange and a loner. As first term got underway, the young woman grew increasingly isolated, and eventually took her own life by slashing her wrists. Her body was discovered in a red gown drenched in blood. From then on, students and faculty have been reporting sightings of a young woman dressed in all red. She's appeared all around the college's campus. The figure dwelling in perpetual isolation is often cited as a reminder of the importance of being kind to one's peers. And I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for joining me for Spooktober night number 3. Tell me which story you found the creepiest. For me, it was definitely the whispering hearing in the attic, I would have been out of there so fast.